In the last video, we learned about the graph editor and we made our animation feel nice and smooth. In this video, we're gonna reveal our logo. So make sure you have saved your project sometime recently. You can hit Command S to do that, or Control S if you're on Windows. And let's review what the video looks like. So we currently have this back and forth animation, and we're gonna start out by actually polishing this up just a tiny bit. So you might notice at the beginning of this, and this is something that you'll get as your eye trains more to see animation, we have a little bump at the beginning of the animation, or at the point when it comes over here. You can see that there's a little bit of overshoot where our ball goes past this end keyframe. That's due to something called keyframe interpolation, which I'm not going to get into in this course, but I'll show you how to fix this bumpy motion by right-clicking on the keyframe. So you have to zoom in here. We're going to go down to keyframe interpolation, click that, and then we will change the spatial interpolation to linear. Hit OK, and those little extra handles should be gone, and we should have a smooth motion again. So I'm going to go back into the graph editor and play with these peaks and valleys a little bit. I want this to be a little bit more dramatic and a little bit more dramatic. Oh yeah, that's looking nice and dramatic. Okay, if you forgot how to do this, if you hold spacebar, you can drag around, or if you use your middle scroll wheel and click down, you can drag around in here, or use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out. All right, now that our motion is cleaned up a little bit more, let's figure out how to reveal our logo. The first thing we want to do is we want to animate our box so it goes back to the other side. So there's this back and forth motion, because as it slides back to the other side, it's going to reveal your text or your logo, whatever you want it to reveal. I'm going to go to maybe 4.5 seconds here and drag the X position of our box all the way until it's off screen. Now you'll see again these little handlebars showed up, and we're going to get rid of those the same way by right-clicking, keyframe interpolation, spatial interpolation, linear. Hit OK. Quick note, if you want to not have to do that every time, this is a setting that I like to set. If you go up into After Effects, you can click Preferences. I think on Windows it might be Edit Preferences, and we're going to go to General Settings. Now there's a ton of stuff in here, but I just want you to go in here and check Default Spatial Interpolation to Linear. That's really the only thing you need to do in here. Just hit OK. Don't have to think about it anymore. We have a pretty smooth animation of it flying back across the screen. I'm going to go into the graph editor and make that a little bit more of a dramatic hill, but not as crazy as these other ones because it's a little slower. And we have a really nice basic animation here. All right, I'm gonna make sure nothing is selected. I'm gonna click in my timeline window and then go up here and click the type tool, and then click here in the middle and type out my name. So that's another way of creating a text layer without having to do right-click, new text layer. And then I'm going to show you how to align this to the center. So I'm going to scroll out with my wheel to show more of our box here. And then over in these panels, you should see a panel called Align. So this aligns our layers to the composition. If you've used Illustrator or Photoshop, this will probably look familiar. If not, you know, it's new. Click Align horizontally and align vertically to center our text layer. So I'm actually going to go into the character panel here and make our text a little smaller. By the way, if this Align panel is not showing up, or any of these other panels aren't showing up at any time, you can go up to Window, and then you'll see a big list of all of these different panels, and just make sure Align is checked and Character is checked. So now our text is a little smaller and the box wipes over it. So the first thing we're going to do is drag our text below our hero shape. So we want it between the background in the shape. And this is what I meant by the layer stacking earlier in this series. Now we are going to reveal our text as the shape passes over it. Now I'm going to introduce you to a new concept called pre-compositions. Pre-composing is essentially taking a layer or a group of layers in our current composition, and it packages them all up into their own composition, which then is nested inside our current composition. So with the layer selected, I'm going to go up to Layer, and then go all the way down to the bottom, Pre-compose. That's going to give me this new menu where I can enter a new composition name. I'm going to call this pre-comp underscore logo, and move all attributes to the new composition. Check that. You can leave that, and then you can check open in open new composition. Hit OK. You should have a blank composition with just that text layer that you had selected earlier. And then if you go back to your logo reveal composition, you'll see that your pre-comp logo is now inside your animation and nothing looks like it's changed. Why do we do it this way? This is actually something that is very handy for replacing assets later on in a project. So because we're doing this logo or this text in its own composition, we can swap out files in there. We can put whatever we want into the logo comp, and then it will show up in our animation comp without having to make changes and readjust our masks or readjust the revealing animation from our shape. Again, this doesn't have to make complete sense right now, but just know that pre-composing is something that you'll probably run into, and it's a really useful technique for keeping things organized and efficient. Back in our logo reveal composition, we're going to select the pre-comp logo and just scroll to zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to teach you about masking. So I'm just throwing new concepts at you all the time in this video, but this one is pretty cool. If we click here on the rectangle tool and we have our comp selected, our pre-comp, we can draw a box around our layer, and you'll see as we draw, it's actually revealing our text. So a mask is basically a shape that you draw around a layer or a composition, and it can tell After Effects to either keep this area or ignore this area. So you do that by going down into the mask settings and changing this from add to subtract. So that makes it disappear. Add makes it show up. So it's saying crop this layer by this box or crop what is inside this box. So I'm going to return this mask to add mode, and I'm going to show you how you can keyframe a mask. So what we're going to do is twirl down and select the mask path property, which is basically the property that controls this shape. And we're going to scroll through here and see, okay, so our box is going to start about right here. So what I'm going to do is drag to select these 2 points. So they should be solid while these points are unsolid. That means they're selected. You can drag this around, and we're going to drag this to be over here by the edge of the box. And then we're going to set a keyframe. Remember, keyframes just say, do this right here, and then later on we'll do something else. So let's scroll forward to where our box is off the edge of the screen, and we're going to select the 2 sides there again and bring our box over to the edge. So now if you drag through, you should have a box that animates and reveals our text as time goes on. Now it's not matching the timing of our box because we did all that custom easing earlier, but we can keyframe this kind of manually to follow that. So I'm actually going to set another keyframe back here. We'll just go through and select those points and line it up so it's kind of in the middle of our box throughout the whole animation. And let's drag this one back So now we have quite a few little keyframes, but that's just another way of roughly matching our mask so that as the box moves over our text, it reveals our text. Now here's where I'm going to show you why we made this pre-comp. If we go into this pre-comp by double clicking, it should open up in here. We're going to add a logo in here. So this is the first time we've imported something into our project. So you can do that by clicking up in the project panel and just double clicking. A Finder window should show up on your computer, or Explorer if you're on Windows, and you can navigate to a logo file. If you don't have a logo file you want to use, you can pick any file from your computer, or I will be providing the project file for the final result here in this project, so you can download that and grab the logo that I used if you want. All right, so I'm just going to quickly navigate to where I keep my logo. I'm going to select that file and hit open. So now we have an image here in our project panel. So now we have our composition with our text in it, and I'm going to drag this image into the timeline of this composition. Now we see our logo on top of the text, and if I go back into our logo reveal comp, you'll see that our box now reveals both the logo and the text. That's pretty cool. We didn't have to redo all that work to update something. We don't have to swap anything out. We can literally just put anything in this comp, and as long as it's within the same size, then it will be revealed by our animation here. So I'm gonna turn off this text layer by hitting this little eyeball icon. And then we have just our logo. I'm gonna hit S and adjust the scale just to make it a little bit smaller. And then go back into the logo reveal and see how this is looking. Let's zoom out here and just play through this whole thing. That's a good animation. You should be really proud of yourself right now if your animation looks anything like what I've created here. This might not feel like much, but the fact that you've done something with custom easing and pre-compositions to swap footage in and out, you're leagues ahead of how much I understood After Effects and what I was able to do when I first started. So if you keep practicing these things, if you keep trying out different ideas, you'll be well on your way to becoming a professional quality motion designer that can get hired to do some pretty cool stuff. We're getting pretty far into this, and we have a really good start and blocking of our animation. In the next video, I'm gonna show you how to add some extra polish, some secondary motion and accents, and do some compositing to make it go from a flat style like this to a stylized gradient lighting style like you saw in the example project. Hopefully you're still having fun. I know I am. Let's go to the next video.